5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sync.
Sync.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 243
yo,
of
what's up? Marty Grab in here,
Totally forgot it was 243 and just improv'd it. I'm Meso.
I'm Barteran.
I'm Eljay.
I'm Jonathan Juan.
I'm Venathan Vaughn.
I'm the Half-Blood Prince.
And hey, everybody, how you doing?
Doing alright.
Precursor, everybody here in this call are idiots. We were up super late last night.
We're up till like 4:30 a.m. watching.
Hey, I
That's how
slept earlier than the rest of you.
It was
5:30 for me. Yeah.
Oh man.
And I didn't even
That
fall
was-
asleep until like at least 6:20 a.m. or something.
Yeah, same here. I can't fall asleep instantly. I envy people that can.
I
can't
couldn't do it either.
It was really bad. We had a tumultuous night in general. A lot of stuff happened last night. They listened to the Harry Potter audiobook. We played GTA and fun stuff happened. Watched Half-Blood Prince till 5:30 a.m. Just an average night.
For those
GTA was fun.
For those unaware, we have been listening to the Harry Potter audiobooks recently.
The Half-Blood Prince
And we did-
audiobooks.
Yeah, we just finished the Half-Blood Prince the other night, so we
Purple,
decided to watch
never
the movie.
heard them or done anything.
See, I was avoiding saying that because I didn't want anyone to spoil it for her.
Now
Now they're gonna
she's fair
spoil it.
game.
Thanks.
She's gonna get like PMs with spoilers in them.
Nobody will spoil
Please don't
it.
do that, guys. We're
Please
so
don't.
close to finishing.
If you do that, you're banned. No,
We've been on a giant journey, essentially, since like the first book, because she had never done anything Harry Potter related. So we said we are going to make you
No,
listen
now
to the
they're
books.
gonna spoil the next one for her. See, it was fine when you guys just mentioned Half-Blood. It was like, oh, she never read Half-Blood. Cool. Now you're saying that she never... God, it's over. It's over.
it's all over now.
It's over. It's
I
ruined.
mean, it was like when Meso already said it,
gone.
it was already kind of a thing.
My
But to be
opinions-
fair, I also did not. I also forgot about that far. I forgot about that aspect. So,
Yeah.
and think about how
My
you kinda
opinions of that
spoiled
movie
something
have
for her early
flip-flopped so
on.
much.
That was a really weird movie.
that.
I don't know how to feel about it. Like the first time I watched it, I didn't like it. The second time I watched it, I really liked it. Last time when we watched it, I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure if I like this anymore.
See, it was great because I
It's a
had a
really
really
weird
good
movie.
time, but I'm not sure if that was because of the movie or because of our commentary.
Oh, dude, we were
Oh man,
so
we were on
loopy.
fire.
We talked over that
It
movie
is.
quite a lot.
There is one good thing about watching movies late at night for us, and that
Everybody's
is
on
when
fire.
we hit that limit. Yeah, we are all like on point. We find everything funny, and we make the funniest
Yeah.
statements.
I think that is up to opinion there. I'm not sure. Not sure we were funny at all.
If somebody listens, like at the time we found it hilarious, but somebody would go back and listen to the recording, like these guys are a bunch
isn't
of idiots.
funny
They're
at
just
all.
yeah,
laughing
it's
and
like
giggling.
this is pretty.
What
terrible.
a bunch of...
We were laughing about stuff that didn't matter all the time.
like
Just like
Ron
little
sitting
lines.
in the back. It's just sitting
Ron's
there.
Neville in the background every time. Freaking beans.
highest paid extra in the
The
movie. And
beans.
The highest paid extra ever.
Neville Long.
Oh no, you're forgetting about Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That's the highest
That
paid
is
extra.
that-
No, at least she had a
definitely
speaking
highest paid
role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she did. She did talk about killing somebody.
Yeah, that was a thing.
It's a Bionicle.
Vin.
You know, just like Harry Potter, with its large and expansive universe filled with rich characters,
Bionicle also.
Chima
in
is my favorite franchise.
Wow.
Excuse me.
I don't know. I
So-
like Chima. Chima's neat. It's got character.
It did have some character. I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, you know what? It was a
had-
pretty decent
We
cartoon
had
show. It was
Laval,
pretty
the
good.
terrible character.
Out of, like,
Cragger, the
right.
betrayer. It's like, it's great. It all works
Real
out.
talk. I've
I mean,
never
it
actually
set
seen
up
the
its
TV
world
show,
decently
so-
well.
Whatever.
I've never actually seen the Chima TV show, so I wouldn't know.
Me
It
neither.
was okay.
Chima
It-
TLDR.
We mock it a lot in the early episodes because it's particularly dreadful, if I do so say, for like the first 10 episodes. And then everything past that point is actually pretty okay.
Yeah, it gets a lot better as it goes on. It's
It was
just
quite interesting actually watching that show progress. It was like on a sloping upswing just for like the duration of its run. It never went down in quality.
yeah,
Kept
but
going out.
it was really telling when the first episode, or the first two episodes at the very least, resolved the entire plot of the series.
It was kind of the Lego show version of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, that's a
Essentially.
very good point. Actually,
It's
I
like-
would actually say it's a very good comparison.
Yeah, that's accurate.
It started off very monster of the week, yes. Very, like, corny, cheesy, no real plot.
Right.
The plot, like, didn't make a lot of sense. And then eventually they started to have an underlying plot that actually made some sense.
Yeah, those actually were really good moments. There's some good villains at the end too.
There were. Very good villain.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
I kind of just saw Chima as a joke this whole time.
No,
Actually,
it's
have to watch
It turns
Like,
out it's
pretty good halfway
got
It
some
was
merit.
difficult to get out of the initial stigma, but it had some redeeming quality.
I mean,
Chima
to be
TLDR
fair,
really funny.
Chima at its best was still always Ninjago at its okayest.
those were only
I
okay.
wouldn't say that.
At its best,
I
yeah.
don't say that.
I don't know.
At
Ninjago's
its
got some
best,
pretty bad episodes.
At its best, it's Ninjago's pretty good.
Well,
Like, I would say
I said,
Ninjago-
I'm not saying that
Ninjago's best is
Chima at
better
its
than Chima's
best is
best.
Ninjago at its worst. I'm just saying it's Ninjago at its okayest.
A better way,
Yeah,
of,
but
a better
I've
way
seen
of putting
Eljay,
it
it's
instead
okay.
of
It's okay.
okayest is that all the series generally revolve around the same general spectrum of quality. High
Generally.
highs and low lows. Like, I would say Ninjago's time travel episode is just as bad as Chima's pilot, I'd say, like, just for different reasons. I hate it for various different reasons.
That's how you really feel.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just the case. You know, it's just how
Yeah.
it is.
That was essentially a big roundabout way of saying that we are all really, really tired.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
no kidding.
tired. So,
I know.
going into this podcast, I think we're going to be okay, but I apologize. The discussion's a little all over the place.
If we're a little giggly, you now know why.
Well,
I'm-
I don't know if we do.
Well, I mean, like we all had what 6 hours of sleep around that.
I had less than that.
Like 4.5.
4.5.
My cats
Yeah.
kept wanting me to feed them, so I got woken up a couple of times.
Yep, that's cat life.
So, before we get into any discussions on this week's podcast, just like to say, go ahead and consider checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/the TTV channel. We've got a lot of cool perks over there, a lot of cool things you can get, but most notably, at least for podcast listeners' point of view, is the ability to become a part of the live studio audience by donating any amount of money. I think it's like $1 a month is the lowest you have to donate to get access to our Discord server, where you can listen to the podcast live every week, and it's a really cool place to be. You can post live commentary in the chat, discover new things, give us new revelations mid-podcast instead of having to wait for us to read in the comments section. A lot of cool things have been discovered through the live studio audience, and we appreciate you all. And also, if you want to be part of our continued BrickOnicle or BIONICLE G3 discussion, TTV message board, support.ttvchannel.com. We've got a lot of different polls, a lot of different topics. Share your thoughts and help give some insight into this project, and help us maybe, if you can try to change our mind on things you don't like or support the things you do like. It's all like, it all feeds together. It's a great collaborative process.
If you have art that you want to sway us with, you will probably
Exactly.
sway us with this art if
But
it's
at the
good.
end of the day, as we've been doing every week, if you're confused about our G3 project, check the description. The TLDR version, it's not official. It is a fan-made,
Hypothetical.
TTV
thing.
made podcast discussion project.
What
Right.
if TTV made Bionicle come back and
Yeah.
it was the system
What
theme?
if TTV took Bionicle
I
and
have
moved
to
it over
wonder.
there?
I have to wonder if our audience tunes you out every week just as
I'm
much
sure they
as
do.
I just tuned you out
I'm
there.
sure they do. I know people tuned out to like the ads at the beginning.
Oh,
But
come
they were always
on.
like,
Could we
little
do
Johnny
like what if we
every
did
week.
this? What if we did this instead of like doing the whole Patreon thing, and instead we have the theme play, you know, it's like dun, 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 dun. At the end someone goes, a TTV podcast is recorded in front of a live studio audience. Dun, dun, dun. And then
We get a
we go
laugh
straight
track.
into it. Right, we get a laugh track. That way someone can actually laugh at our jokes.
Oh, Meso, you're so crazy.
so funny.
That was our laugh track, everybody. Let's just like get like a bunch of tracks like that of that duplicated, so it sounds like there's a lot of people there.
Oh
people
my
going,
god! I will work on that later.
I like the sound of that.
I like the sound of a lot of things.
Yeah, yes. I guess while we're on the subject of this being a hypothetical thing, somebody had asked me yesterday whether or not we'd ever consider pitching this to LEGO, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Nor do I.
Well, okay.
Well-
Here's the thing.
I mean, never say never. But
No, I mean, like, I am
said
going to say
never.
never because we're not a creative agency that they go to. Two, essentially our pitch is, hey guys, what if you did Bionicle as a system theme? And for multiple reasons, I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And for multiple reasons, I think they've already, this isn't something revolutionary that, we would blow their minds with. The only thing we would show them is, minifigure designs. And the rest they've already either thought of, or, as we've seen, they've already done.
Well, it will be interesting to see what, for them, they can see how certain ideas resonate with the fan base. So if they were ever to bring Bionicle back for G3 later down the line, they do have this to look back on and be like, hey, they tried doing something at one point.
They'll do exactly what they did for Hero Factory and G2 and look at the community and see what's going on. And instead of seeing everybody crying about G2, they'll be seeing, System Bionicle is the new thing. And then maybe they'll be like, hey, let's bring it back.
I don't know. I don't know if that would be it. I do think that it is a good way to gauge what fans are thinking can be changed about Bionicle and the reception to those changes.
Yes.
So that is something that we can talk about.
It should be at least clarified that the goal of this is not another Bring Back Bionicle campaign. This is just
absolutely not.
These are our thoughts.
This is just kind of our Bionicle project.
If we were the
tank.
ones doing it, then
it's a thought
What
experiment.
would we do? Yeah.
Right. So that we can have some fun discussion
Prank,
in the podcast.
bro.
I mean, we're already dealing with a lot of things that I'm sure the LEGO team was dealing with when they were bringing back Bionicle for G2. Just push back for certain things that you want to do or creative changes you want to make to the project.
Oh yeah.
Well, even worse, actually, they're doing it in a vacuum because you have to develop your line in a vacuum. So they don't know. I mean, they've done some polling with kids or something, see what kids like, but they don't know what the fan base is going to enjoy or not.
So because the fan base can never truly be happy. Because Bionicle is so complex, they've got so many different things that people prefer about it, So you can never please everybody in the Bionicle fandom. If you make it too complex, you alienate some people. Make it too simple, you alienate some people.
Yeah, there's no happy medium, it seems.
Nope. And if it is, it's a difficult tightrope to walk.
So in regards to a pitch, probably not. We're not going to make some direct pitch to LEGO or anything.
Yeah.
We might make a video on it.
We might make a video.
When all is said and done, I do think we should make some kind of slideshow presentation video.
I definitely think we'll have a presentation once we've actually wrapped up.
Yeah, but it's not a thing we're not going to go to Brick Fair, find the community manager, and be like,
and
okay,
force them to look at it.
Hear us out.
Well, I mean, it probably wouldn't work out. If it might come up conversation with employees. So
we can't put it on.
But it's that's not our express goal.
We can't put it on ideas as a standalone set, can we?
Say what?
We're not allowed to put it on ideas even as a standalone.
No, I believe we can, actually.
I think we can. Well, I don't know.
It is one of LEGO's IPs, and I think that they disallowed that at some point recently.
I know 100% they disallowed any new sets from older licensed lines or that kind of thing.
Licensed lines, but I'm pretty sure in the rules it says they discourage it because it's likely that they're already developing something similar to it, so it's not something that would likely get approved. But I don't think there's anything wrong with submitting
I definitely know that they disallowed projects to bring back full revivals of LEGO themes. Because people were using ideas, the Bring Back Bionicle people were using ideas as a method to bring back Bionicle. I don't know if that applies to standalone one-off sets or not.
Yeah, a standalone one-off Bionicle set.
I'm not an ideas expert. It certainly might. It certainly might not.
Because I remember looking into it and reading over the rules to see if that's something that we could do, and I don't recall seeing anything that says we couldn't.
Well, I mean, it would be kind of cool to
According to studio audience member Azani, he says that it is expressly banned with the wording "resuming old themes."
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Azani, can you do me a favor and send it over?
Right.
I want to go ahead and
But I wonder if, because resuming old themes is sort of a pretty specific wording, and I'm wondering if that would apply to making Construction Bionicle return.
Essentially, all right, here's the idea. Resuming old themes does mean, if we said, hey, let's bring Bionicle back, and we took a picture of the mock we made of Tahu, they're going to be oh, okay, well, we tried that. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. But, a reimagining of another theme,
but a Bionicle set and a system theme with an actual mock made behind it. I'm not sure.
It would be in a sense, it'd kind of be if we try to do a space set that's kind of based off Mars Mission.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I get you.
It's a remix or something.
It's very, very accurate.
It's a real gray area.
Even if we were to submit it, I don't think it would be approved. But I don't know if there's necessarily anything that's stopping us from doing it.
Yeah, I went ahead and looked into it. A couple of interesting things. Just their acceptable project content. Keep your project's content appropriate, yada yada. No new parts. No minifigure only projects, which I do find a bit interesting because the latest set that got cleared for being a set was a minifigure only project. Women of Space. But it does say right here, please only suggest new ideas. No projects to bring back, in quotes, old LEGO sets. Don't submit projects requesting we re-release or bring back discontinued LEGO products or themes in their original form, and don't submit projects that are modifications, improvements, or expansion sets to existing or past LEGO sets.
There's the 3-word loophole, or the original form.
Well, no. I think the last thing you read,
last statement, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you read that last statement one more time?
Give it again.
And don't submit projects that are modifications, improvements, or expansion sets to existing or past LEGO sets. It does go on to say, if you're submitting a project based on a discontinued LEGO theme or brand, for example, Blacktron or Octan, it must be your own new creative work.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. That's what I remember saying, yeah.
Okay, so as long as, I mean, this would be our own creative work. It'd be new designs.
BIONICLE is so
BIONICLE is not something they've done before, and it's an expansion.
It does say no new parts, but I feel like that part is a little... I mean, I feel like a lot of the LEGO idea sets I've seen come out did have new parts assigned.
Yeah. Also, them, like, I'm assuming we'd only submit one of our products here if we were to do it, so we didn't have to.
I mean, we could do a whole lot. How many images can you put in a LEGO ideas thing?
Enough. Enough.
Well, I'm pretty sure they only want it to be one box set. They want to imagine it as only one. Like in the past, they have split them up into separate sets, like the Ghostbusters Ideas project. That was all one set with like the Ghostbusters vehicle and then the Ghostbusters Firehouse. That was all supposed to be in one box, but they ended up splitting all that. However, I think they still want you to imagine it all in one box as one set.
Yeah.
So.
Boy, the story behind that, specifically the Ghostbuster Firehouse, is fascinating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, probably a little bit more fitting for BrickFeed, which you guys should totally listen to. But
continue discussion about that then.
Yeah, absolutely.
According to Walksite, no ideas sets have had new molds, but recolors and reprints are allowed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, maybe it wasn't technically an idea set. When they brought Minecraft into the thing,
that
they
was a
made
full
new parts
line
for it.
based
That was
off
a full
the
line.
ideas
So
sets.
I see what you're talking about. I'm just saying that, like, you know, there is a some leeway if they're going to bring.
Point being, for the ideas model of BrickOnicle, we'd have to do no minifigures, or we'd have to do, like,
no, we need the minifigures.
Well, then we can't make them
do
BIONICLE
that without the molds.
I mean, here's what I'm thinking.
We'd have to use Recolor Hero Factory.
If we did LEGO ideas, it would never actually pass anything.
But what if it did?
The only point to it would be to have publicity for a project on the podcast.
Yeah,
that would be a big deal. Now, if that got 10,000 views and that's on LEGO's front page and they show an image from it and they're like, "Hey, sorry, we don't do this, so we're cutting that out."
Then we're gonna be kicking ourselves because we lost out on the chance for a project simply because we stuck to our guns and put a custom 3D mask in there.
The thing about the custom mask,
and then we'll be blamed.
But none of us actually care about making it a real thing.
Yeah, I know.
That's the thing.
I know.
No, it's not even just to be blamed too. There's no point to doing this like BrickOnicle thing if we don't have the minifigures. You know what I'm saying? There's no actual like thing that comes out of that where you
taking
just
away
want
the
the set
minifigures. You
and
might
no
as well make the
minifigures.
Matoran shorter. I mean, taller.
You might as well make it shorter.
I feel that's a proper segue into our elephant in the room.
So last week we ended our podcast with a discussion. It came out of nowhere. A couple interesting things have happened since then.
One big interesting thing is that
the one big interesting thing is that last week the big caveat was we went into the podcast prepared to have a debate, a knockdown, drag-out brawl. Should the Matoran be the same size as the Toa, aka normal minifigures, or should they be shorter minifigures with some different kind of leg construction to get posability? Well, the big solution that was found was there was a custom hip piece that somebody found that was used on Darth Maul when he had like robot legs, and it allowed for short, like little skeleton boots to be used on the minifigure torso.
And the same boots that are used for the little robots in Next and
Yes. Come to find out, when that hip piece is added, it does add extra height, and it adds enough height to where the Matoran would be the same size as the Toa.
It's kind of a silly thing that we overlooked because, like, in that picture that we were all looking at, the Toa minifigure that was used was a Hero Factory minifigure, so it was taller. And we should have realized, looking at the Hero Factory minifigure compared to that.
It's because it uses custom legs, is what it was. So it's the kind of thing, like, I'd never known that piece existed, that hip piece, so I wasn't exactly familiar with it when we were discussing it. I didn't know the height thing. We should have caught it, because basically, last week, it was like, oh, that invalidates the discussion we were going to have. In hindsight, that revelation invalidated the discussion we were going to have, but not in the same way. We still have to have the conversation, because now that's no longer a viable solution. So, we've had a few knockdown dragouts about this subject since the last podcast.
Yeah.
The infamous
we tried to, at least.
battle. Yeah, and I begged you all, save it for the podcast.
And we kept going.
You kept going, like the troopers that you are.
We kept going angrily.
VAR has helpfully made a poll in the BrickFeed forum. Before any other people remark on this, no, this is not... if whoever wins this poll is not 100% official. It's not the purpose of the poll. It's not a vote. It's a poll to gauge feedback.
Yeah, I don't really know what's so hard to understand about that, but I'm glad you said it anyway.
Just to clarify.
Basically, the purpose of the poll. The purpose of the poll, I just wanted to kind of gauge where people stood as far as what they value most when it comes to adapting this into a system theme, just to see where everyone's kind of standing on that topic there, because I think going forward with this argument, it's going to come down to like really what we want out of a Bionicle system theme more.
Yes.
So I asked, like, do you value like the posability or like the actual minifigure itself, the stature, simplicity of the full minifigure, and not having to use roundabout methods to make them shorter, or do you value the clear distinction between the Toa and the Matoran as some like an adaptation of what we've had before?
Mm-hmm.
So it was mostly like just to kind of gauge where people stood as far as adapting these Matoran and whether they would mind if the Matoran were the same size as the Toa. Because, to be fair, in our canon, the Toa and the Matoran are the same race of people. The Toa are just the Matoran granted powers. So
exactly.
Right.
So an argument could be made for either
I
one.
feel like with one of the things too, this is our way to like basically do demographic polling, or like kind of do like play tests in a way. Like LEGO will do this themselves with actual like prototypes and stuff, and they'll give it to kids. Focus groups. There you go.
About
That's
all
what
we can do.
This is the best we can do. I will say that like with the Toa Matoran being the same height, I do feel like a lot of people, if they were given the actual set, might have a different perspective once they're holding it in their hands and doing the thing. So
because like I'm on the side of making them smaller, but it also has to be kept in mind like our sample size group, predominantly people that like Bionicle, like I said on our message boards, and they value the character reasons for the Matoran being shorter. But if you go to like
it was no surprise that option was voted the most.
If we go to Eurobricks and make the same poll, we might have a separate result.
Slightly different result, because they're more...
I think we'd actually be a much different one, simply because they don't have the... I feel like a lot of this is come from like the passion about Bionicle and people who like, who like the old canon, and it carries over.
Slightly as like the word, it would really be very different. But this is our audience, this is what we got to work with. This is the people listening to our podcasts. So, let's, I don't know how exactly deep we want to get into this, but like let's hash this out like once and for all.
I feel it's worth settling if possible.
Yes, I'd like to. I know there's been some debates. It's basically Kahi v everybody. It's basically how it's been. But you get the floor. I silenced you last week. You get the opening floor this week.
Okay, let's hear this.
Listen, this is that movie Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It's like it's the same deal, man. Okay,
everybody.
All right.
Again.
Kai Pilgrim versus the world.
Let's start with the most basic thing, right? In every other LEGO line, so this beforehand, every other LEGO line, the minifigure is the basic villager, or the normal human in that, right? And so if you have your main characters in that, anything below that, the shorter figures are figures inferior to the default, and anyone like a little taller with better armor, with better printing, they are more powerful. But the minifigure, by and large, has always been the default for these characters. The average villager is the size of General the Matoran. This would be true, if you look at most other Lego lines. We looked at some others. Ninjago, for example, has normal people, the Postman, Dareth, all people who don't have powers, who are the same size. Chima the same way. The only characters that are shorter in Chima are characters or like animals that were actually shorter than the main characters. Than the normal, like the base characters. All the characters are the same. And then you had like the beavers or something. Just any other license theme, same deal. The hobbits, of course, are shorter in the Lord of the Rings theme because they are shorter figures. And so my main argument is this necessarily. I don't see the arguments that you're going to hear are arguments as to why size will make the characters or make them visually more powerful, which I don't disagree with. I just don't think that is more important than taking away articulation and devaluing the minifigure of the general populace. In my mind, this Lego theme is going to be used in order to do some more world building, do building of villages, do things with other characters, and therefore, if you have Matoran and you make essentially it's going to be 90% of our inhabitants, because no one who's not the Toa and maybe the Rakshi are going to be normal minifigures. So that means any other minifigure that we're going to have is going to be short figures, which are not the most liked and not the most valued, and just because they have articulation taken away from them. Last week we had a different argument because we thought it might be possible in order to have shorter minifigures with articulated legs. Now we know that's not. In fact, there's a topic on our boards that went through everything, and essentially there's no way to really reach that. So because of that, I think that I don't disagree with the arguments that size does make it look more powerful. I just don't think that's important enough to make every other minifigure less articulated.
There was a topic on the board about leg designs, and
there was a topic.
Most aren't viable. There was probably one or two that were interesting.
One or two that weren't too bad,
definitely.
And also I feel like the assumption that we've reached all options as far as what could be done as far as giving the minifigure legs is, I don't know. I feel like there's plenty of things to explore, way more bricks to explore out there. I don't know if we've expanded all the possibilities.
Especially since we're still sticking to our no new pieces shtick, which isn't realistic.
You're right. That's not realistic, but at the same time, I don't feel like Lego... There's a very good reason why Lego has not made posable Hobbit legs.
I certainly.
And if they did have them somewhere, they would have made them with the Hobbit. I've said it before. Like the Hobbit was the perfect line to introduce that leg piece in because you had a lot of main characters with the shorter legs, and they didn't go with that.
A lot of hobbits.
But to be fair, I mean, if we're going by Hobbit legs, most characters that have used the Hobbit legs have been humanoid characters with flesh and bone, and it might be a little weird to have skeleton legs, for instance, represent their legs. It wouldn't really fit with those characters. However, if you were to do something like that, a custom build for a BIONICLE character, it wouldn't be as bad because those characters are robotic. So they might have wanted to avoid making custom legs for those characters because it makes less sense for those characters. Here, I'm not so convinced. They might be able to come up with a solution that would work.
Yeah, in this instance, I'm not entirely sure. For the record, that topic was made by our member, friendly as he's named, Von Doom. And he does go through a lot of these options. I don't know. I think definitely, at the very least, out of all these options, the one that looks the best are the Hobbit legs. Maybe that's just a matter of refinement. But I also think it's the easiest route to go as well. To accomplish your goals. For minor characters.
This is a difficult thing for me to actually give an opinion on because I feel like if this was an actual theme that was going to be produced and we were actually taking a look at okay, are we going to have a lot of sets with Matoran? Are we going to do Matoran packs? Are we going to build the world? And if the answer to any of those questions is yes, for the general Lego populace, I do feel like it would benefit us to have maximum articulation. But there's this degree of separation in my mind because we're having this conversation, and even though we're supposed to be doing this as if it's an actual theme, in the back of my head, the only thing I can keep thinking to myself is it's not actually happening. And it's that 1 degree of separation. Like, and normally I put myself in the shoes of Lego, but for this instance, my counter argument is just it's not actually happening. Let's stick with what makes the most sense for the story, and it's not going to matter in images anyway because nobody's going to like. You know, even if we have a custom piece, this whole discussion like it still amounts to the same thing. If people want to like mock our sets, they're not going to like get the custom piece. They're just going to use Hobbit legs.
Well,
So it's either Hobbit or same size, really, at the end of the day. Exploring like the custom outcomes isn't going to lead to much because it's all just images.
Right.
Fair.
Not actually a set
I
that's
feel
going to be
that
produced.
that's an okay
Also,
point.
wow, that picture. That's going in the video by Ulti.
Because like some of the custom suggestions I can see working if they are a bit more refined and Lego is actually behind them.
Agreed.
But at the end of the day, they're not really going to convince anyone, I don't think,
Right.
because they're still limited to what we have. I do feel like there is a solution out there that hasn't been thought up yet. I'm pretty sure that there's a way to do it.
I feel the one with Surge's helmet is pretty close. You just gotta make the hips like not so wide.
I agree. I feel like there's a similar solution to that example there that might look a bit better. But yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, I do feel like really what it comes down to is the Hobbit legs versus normal size minifigure.
Yep. So now the discussion becomes, I think prior there was a bit of a split because some people were prior under the assumption that during our point in this pitch where we were eventually going to get into like set concepts, that the Matoran were going to be, if not a prominent feature in every set, prominent enough to build the world through their presence, and they might make up the majority. Am I wrong in saying that?
I think you're
would,
wrong.
They would make, I don't know if they would make the majority of characters released in sets. I do think that if you were getting a collection, they would end up being the majority. In the same way that, like, no one, I mean, that's not true. But, like, a lot of people, you know, with Stormtroopers, for example, a lot of people will buy battle packs, they'll buy these, you know, in order to create, like, armies. A lot of people will, I feel, in this Bionicle pitch, would want to create their own villages or, like, aspects of their own villages and then put their own civilians in there. So, and the actual set count, now the Toa are always going to be the main thing, the Roxy are going to be the main antagonist, like that's always going to be present, but from the like the fan collection and also like just the play figure aspect of it, the world building aspect of it, yes, there will be more minifigures in your collection that are Matoran than Toa, because there's only 6 Toa and there could be
I'm sure by that point the collector wouldn't mind picking up a couple normal sized minifigure legs and replacing them all.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not saying that wouldn't true. And maybe collector's the wrong thing because like collector implies like an AFLL or something for a lot of money to do it. I think that just like if you bought like a set that was a Licoro village, you would want other Licoro minifigures in there or Licorn, you know, like a Matoran of Wind. We're changing all the names up here, so I forgot. But yeah, you would want to have these people in your village and like make little things of them doing, you know, whatnot. So. Collector is kind of like a very specific term that I don't want to use because it feels too specific. I feel like just general fans would do this as well with what they got.
But the thing is, how heavy of a focus are they going to be? Like, here's the thing with the battle pack reasoning. There are very, 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 very few battle packs or expansion packs. Like, for these lines you compare to, Chima, they had 3. At least in their last year, only 3. For 3 of the tribes. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem worth it in the end when you could just put them in sets.
Well, I mean, okay, so there's some things I was thinking of when it came to this. We could do battle packs where we get like possibly we could have like iconic Matoran that we would have as side characters in the story. Right, so if we have like important side characters, which we will have, we could put them in these battle packs. Alternatively, we could take advantage of the whole polybag kind of rage that's going off the collectible minifigures. And if you go to Walmart right now, you can go up and down the aisle. You can see a bunch of other polybags of different things beforehand. You don't need to be collector minifigure.
The collectible
yeah, I know. But
minifigures.
I'm saying like, you know, like the mixel bags and everything. So I'm saying that like you could also do a thing where you have a blind bag and you have one villager in it. You buy the blind bag, you open it up, and whatever you get is whatever you get. There'd be like different types of villagers, you know, with different weapons and different like cloth accessories and stuff to make it different colored masks, example, and then you can incorporate them into your village as you see fit. So just a bunch of alternatives to just the battle packs or something. You could do something that popularized the idea of like, hey, I'm gonna go get this and see what villager I get and put it into my village.
Yeah, because that was
and use that to customize.
That was the
something.
only caveat that like was kind of swaying me going into last week's podcast, was when we approached this BIONICLE G3, the direction we were going to take. Like when we picked our winners for the BrickOnicle contest, a lot of it I feel is like evident. Like we value these big locations that build the world in some way. Like we had some debate on some stuff, but with Takoro and Likoro specifically, it's like going forward into this theme, we haven't reached that point yet. Like I was wondering how many of the sets are going to be Toa versus Rahi Rakshi, and then like one or two villagers, versus how many of the sets are going to be village play sets or diorama displays.
I mean,
with like 4 Matoran and 1 Toa.
See that. I mean, that's the thing. Ideally, I would like a mixture of both, where we do have the sets between the Rahi and the sets with the villages. But I also don't believe that we're ever going to have any village sets that have more than like 1 Matoran character, unless it's going to be a big flagship set, like the Takoro set, for instance. That would have.
I mean, I don't know, Var, because think about how many actual sets have about 4 or more minifigures. No, there's a good amount of them that under the $40 range.
Most of our sets are going to be featuring the Toa and villain characters.
Right, so that's 2 of them. But that means that
only
the
2?
Other 2. No, out of the 4 minifigures. Out of the 4 minifigures you get, and think about how many sets come with 4 minifigures.
Out of the 4 minifigures, I would expect there to be 2 Toa, 1 villain, 1 Matoran. Maybe even 2 villains, 1 Toa, 1 Matoran. I don't think there's going to be 2 Matoran out of the 4 minifigures you're going to allot. You're going to give 2 of those to Matoran characters?
Possibly, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, then that's a devaluing of your own design.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that.
Well,
with a limit of only 4, you're not going to give it to 2 throwaway characters. You're going to want the characters actually in your show.
I feel like that has happened before with Lego, and I don't have an exact set queued up. But
because, even with Ninjago, I can't really think of any sets where it featured heavily any villager characters or side characters that weren't villains. Like it's pretty villain heavy. There's usually a lot of villains in their sets, and maybe
except
1 or 2 ninja.
Incredibly large.
Exactly. Except for the huge flagship Temple of Air Jitsu, which is what I kind of imagine Takoro being.
Yup.
So I don't really see the scenario where there's going to be a lot of Matoran characters in these sets. I can definitely see flagship sets for sure. That makes sense. I mean, sorry, I don't know why I said flagship. I can definitely see minifigure packs as a thing for sure. There'd be Matoran characters in minifigure packs. I can see that. It
also depends on are the Matoran going into our story, or do they fit the definition of throwaway characters?
And we also need to make sure that we're comparing our examples to actual Lego action themes, not adaptions from movies.
Yeah, homegrown IPs like Ninjago, Nexonites, Chima, Exoforce, stuff like that. Because if it is an adaptation or if it's a licensed theme, well, that's going to pull from something that alters.
Yeah, licenses are going to alter what the sets have.
Then we get into gray areas because Ninjago doesn't have many side characters that aren't part of the group. So you're correct when you say that not a lot of sets have any of those characters. Typically, they're all heroes, villains. They fight. With Chima, it's a bit more of a gray area because Chima had an army. Every village had an army. They had dozens of just throwaway, no-name characters who they would just put into sets, a complete random to make that army.
But
so they had people
did they make up the bulk of the minifigure count in that set?
See, that's difficult for me to say without combing through.
That's the thing that I'm not convinced about. So, obviously, if there's a precedent for that, then I would be a little bit more lenient towards my opinion.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you do a precedent, because Chima had 8 main characters. We have 6. 2 of those characters didn't get featured in sets until a later year. So then, yeah, you're right. There's 6 main characters. I need to tabulate how often they were the main focus versus all the other schmucks. That's what needs to be figured out. But also it's tricky because the bad guys had those throwaway characters too. They were named
right, and I don't really count the bad sets either.
Well, I mean, okay, think about it this way too. We don't have any minion characters though for our villains.
You're
Our
right.
villains are the only characters there. So, in a sense, like the minifigure that would be the bad guy minion would have to be a Matoran because there's no other minifigure to replace that.
Or we could just like not have minions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I'm sure there's a lot of different creative solutions you can have there.
Between the Rakshi and the Rahi,
Like
I'm not too
Meso
concerned
bots.
about needing cannon
Yeah.
fodder.
No, I don't think we need minions. What I'm saying is that, like, yeah, is essentially that
If
we
we
still need
wanted
a
them,
base
you're
level of
right.
minifigures.
And Minions already had their own movie. Do we need to give them that much exposure?
How you doing, Vin?
That's an easy joke. I applaud you for that attempt.
Yeah,
See,
I'm doing okay. Just having fun listening, working on something.
All right. I'm gonna link some Chima sets. This one's Goran's Gorilla Striker. There's 3 gorilla characters. One Raven. One of these gorillas is an actual character. I mean, they're all actual characters, but a lot of them are, side
this set
characters.
kind of disproves your point. One of them is a Hobbit minifigure. 2 of them are, characters, main characters.
But,
to
I mean,
some
they would all
extent.
be characters, though. Like what I'm saying, like when I say I say Matoran, I'm not just necessarily excluding that to just random Matoran. It would be characters that we like. I'm
Yeah,
gonna throw out
he's
names we
talking
haven't
about, like,
confirmed yet.
Jala,
but like
for instance.
Holly or Jala
and
or
even
right.
to that extent, there'd still only be 1 per set at most. You'd have a set called Liwa's Jungle Encounter, and it'd be Liwa, it'd be Kongu, and then it'd be the villain, and then whoever else.
here's kind of what I was thinking about.
Well, yeah,
like,
there's 3 minifigures. Yeah, so right. But I'm saying for ones that have 4 or more, the other 2 have to be Matoran because we don't have any other minifigures to fill that gap.
Okay, see,
That's my
the
thing.
have to be part kind of gets me because it doesn't have to be.
It could just be another.
Okay, so
Toa.
what do you? Okay, you said no minions. What are these other minifigures going to be then?
What are you talking about? I gave you an example. 2 Toa, one Matoran, 1 villain character. That's an example of that lineup working.
This
I'm
is
gonna-
true.
I'm gonna-
The picture is kind of bad, but just for the sake of discussion,
Thanks.
there's like one of the
Thanks,
Chima
Meso.
posters. No, this is related. It's not unrelated. This is the kind of like we have the main characters. There's Krager and I'd say Crominus, like Razor the Raven, Laval the Lion, War is the Wolf, and Eris the Eagle, and then like everybody else. They have names. They appear in sets like all the time, but they're not really main characters. Like Kruller, Crawlet, Krug, Razon, Razkol,
So
Rizzo,
all right, I'm gonna
Leonidas,
link some other of these.
Longtooth.
So essentially, what these are, they're sets that have one main character
Here's what
and
I'm
another
seeing
side
from that
character.
picture that you linked, Meso. Here's what I'm seeing
Yeah.
from the picture you linked, and the one that the thing that I'm most worried about. Because from this picture, I can't tell who the main characters are.
Yep.
I've never seen Chima before, and I have no clue who I'm supposed
See, I
to be
was
looking
gonna- I
at.
was
You,
gonna make
you
that
named a
point.
lot
How
of
could
names,
you?
and I'm desperately struggling to figure out which name goes to which
because
minifigure.
they all look the same.
They all
they're
look
not
the same.
visually distinct.
And that's not what I want. The Toa should be visually distinct from the Matoran.
Oh, it's especially bad with Eris. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't even
no,
tell which one
almost-
Eris is.
These designs, very very clearly, they to be fair too, though, the characters in Chima are not more powerful than their other counterparts.
Nope, not until
And that's
the
why
later
they weren't
part of the
designed to
story.
look like that because they're not.
But you should at least be
necessarily.
able to distinguish your main characters. Can you
It's,
tell me,
it's great.
without looking at the names, who's the main character on the Crocodile Tribe?
I'd say Crominus.
Yeah, you would.
I would say Crominus. I mean, Krager does have the shoulder pads, so I'm assuming.
But so does
he's-
Crominus.
Oh, you're
Kai
right.
makes a good
Yeah,
point.
He's
because-
got a crown too. You're totally
They
right.
both
Kai
have...
makes a good point
yeah.
because it wasn't until the last year of Chima that they did get super like powered up, like, and then they
Right,
started
once
to
you
look
get the
like
Phoenix
that.
stuff,
and
yeah,
then
once you get the
when
Phoenix
you get
armor
like
and
that,
stuff.
and they all do gold because that's the only way Lego knows how to make characters like super powered. Is just splash gold everywhere. Then you can start to see, okay, these guys are the top dogs. But I also agree, like, it's not a good thing for the line as a whole.
Right, and I totally agree with
designs.
that. I just don't think that like you need to, like, I mean, what would be the solution in this one? Would they make
them short.
make all
I
the
think
other
that's what
characters
Mario's
short?
getting at.
Well, I mean, yeah, the solution would be yes to make them short. Here, it doesn't necessarily work because it doesn't make sense in the universe, but for our universe, it does,
Well,
and there's
not
a
yet.
precedent for it.
It doesn't make sense in our universe yet because we haven't decided on it. I don't think it makes sense for our
makes
universe.
sense in the
To me,
context of
well,
it.
and here's why: because the Toa are just Matoran with superpowers in our universe. They've just been given extra powers. They don't necessarily actually,
And see,
are
this is
enhanced in
another disagreement, because I don't see the Toa as just getting elemental powers. They
Yeah.
should physically be enhanced as well. To me, they're like Spartan characters. They have been enhanced. They're not just Matoran, they're like Super Matoran.
Interesting. And I never saw the Spartan comparison, but that makes a lot of sense.
Well, maybe if you hadn't shut down a discussion, you would have heard it. I'm kidding.
Well, maybe if you'd had that discussion now, I would have heard it.
I mean, I
We
feel
are
like
having
there's-
the discussion now.
I get the idea that they are enhanced in terms of like general power set. I just don't think them like towering over the Matoran at the expense
I think it's important.
of making the Matoran less valuable.
I think it's important that you have a visual distinction, a very clear visual distinction between the power sets, between our main characters and our lesser characters, because at the end of the day, there needs to be
And
a
you
reason.
will-
There needs to be a reason for the Toa to be needed in this universe. It makes less sense to me if the Matoran had the physical capability of fighting exactly the same as the Toa are. Like, sure, they've
They
got more
don't
weapons
find
to
exactly
use.
the same.
They've got more weapons to use, but I'm talking about their actual capabilities to fight and combat and run away and charge and do all the things that a Toa should be able to do that the Matoran shouldn't be able to do. There's a lot of distinction between those two characters and those two power sets. And I feel that needs to be visually clarified immediately out of the gate. The second you pick up these minifigures, you should know exactly who is important and who is not important. The Matoran characters are less important. And a lot of the value is placed on the Matoran minifigures being of inferior quality. But they're inferior characters.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying that like that's not worth the actual what you're saying. What you're describing in terms of visually making something distinct, I feel is something that's going to be clarified. And the only reason we're even really having this now is because we have decided that the Toa get armor later down the line. Because we wanted them to start off as being on this, like being at a lower level of power at the first year, and then growing in power as time went on. At the first year, they have the potential to become these great warriors, but they're still mostly at the, like experimenting with it. They're just becoming like from a Matoran into Toa. They've just made that transition. So in the first year now, if we're looking at the last year, if we're looking at year 3 and the armor enhancements, everything that Toa would have, I feel like you could say, yes, 100% these characters are the most important. And we're getting to that and we're building up to that. It's the whole reason we're building up to that right now, instead of starting them off as these armored characters from the get-go.
The thing is, how do you work that if they're all the same size? The printing is too flimsy. It's not good enough. Because you're just going to have different printing.
I don't believe that,
a couple of different colors, maybe. You're not going to be able to distinguish them at first glance, like this Chima poster.
Well, the difference with this Chima poster is that a lot of them have extra like armor and different things to set them apart.
That makes it worse, actually.
Listen. The thing that would set our Matoran figures apart as the main characters was because they have the Nuva designs on their chest.
I'll say
that's something that Matoran are not going to have.
But I still don't think that's strong enough.
Yeah, that's not enough to differentiate the difference between the two. If you looked at a lineup, I feel like you'd be able to tell who are the main characters. They're probably the ones with the superhero-esque designs on their chest that are glowing. I don't want to look at a lineup to be able to tell. I should immediately know by picking up
Yeah, exactly.
the figure.
You can immediately tell.
No, you can't.
No,
That's the thing.
that's the one I just said you can't.
You cannot immediately tell by printing. You can tell by size.
Obviously, you can tell if you put them next to each other and you compare the two. Okay, that one's got a Nuva symbol on it. I guess that makes him special. That's not enough, though. That's not enough to me to prove the difference between the two.
Wait, okay, so wait, you mean that like if you can't? What are you saying right now? You're saying that if you look at one Matoran, I guess you're not comparing them together. If you have Tahu and you have Jaller next to each other, you can tell that Tahu's the main character, right?
Yes, if you put them in a lineup, of course you would be able to.
Not in the lineup. Just compare these two minifigures.
That is putting them in a lineup.
How else are you going to compare them on box art?
I don't know how else you're planning
on doing it. What are you saying then?
What are you saying?
I'm saying.
You're saying that you're looking at Tahu and you're like, well, maybe he's not the main character. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the second you pick up Tahu and he has movable legs, you immediately know he's important.
You wouldn't know that if you didn't have the other minifigures to compare it to, though, right? Because you have to have the shorter minifigure and be like,
how are you comparing them? Like, walk us through.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I don't know how you. Apparently, from what you're saying, you're just picking up Tahu and being like, "Oh, maybe he's the main character, maybe he's not."
On box art, like, if I'm looking at the set and I see that one of them is a tall figure and one of them isn't, tall figure wins. He's important.
You're looking at them in a lineup? On
No,
a set?
okay, wait a minute.
That's a lineup.
Wait a minute. No, okay, hold up. Okay. If you pick up the Jowler minifigure and you realize it doesn't move at all, and you put it down, and then you pick up your Tahu minifigure and it does move, guess what? That's more important. You don't need to put that Tahu minifigure directly next to your Jowler minifigure to know that there's a difference.
You don't need to. In that sense, no, but you don't need to.
That's the sense we're talking about!
I know, I'm saying that it's the same argument for printing. You just look at the Jar minifigure, you look at the Tahu minifigure, well, this one's more armored and more complex and more detailed. This is probably the main character.
Listen, okay, sure. Fair enough. I don't care about that. I care about there being a very clear visual distinction between the characters that represents what they are in the story. They're not just Matoran. The printing, the Nuva symbol, just the Nuva symbol and some tribal patterns? Are you kidding me? Is that really what makes the Toa special versus the Matoran? Is that really the difference here? Because our Matoran characters already have inherent elemental abilities in this story here, in this canon. So what exactly are the Toa needed for? What can the Toa do that the Matoran can't do?
The Matoran have very, very slight elemental abilities. It's like having some of a flamethrower versus like a firebender. I mean, clearly the Toa has way more potential and way more
that
power.
in a set.
It doesn't matter how much power they have. The fact that they have power at all is what is important here. You can give a character a small amount of power and still run your entire story. That's irrelevant. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, you're putting a lot of, like, value in this worth of the Matoran characters.
You're putting a lot of value in the worth of tallness,
No,
essentially.
Shut up. You're putting a lot of value in the worth of these Matoran characters and how they're losing their worth by becoming Hobbit characters, but I don't understand what the worth is. What is the value here? What are you talking about specifically?
The value is that we're making 90% of the island minifigures that have no articulation in their legs.
Yes, but are 90% of the island going to be represented in our sets, though?
It's not going to be 90% of the sets, but it's still going to be an important part of the sets.
So it's not 90% then, is it?
No, I'm saying that every other character we're ever going to have is going to be...
It won't be 90%.
Every other character that we're going to have...
It will be an important part of the sets. There's a confliction here.
We're not talking about characters that are never going to be represented in the sets because it doesn't matter whether they have Hobbit legs or not because they won't have any legs at all. They've got no physical representation. We're talking about actual characters that are going to show up in our sets, and 90% of those characters are not going to be Matoran characters.
I got something to share.
What is it?
No, I was looking for examples of like Chima sets where the throwaway characters outnumber the main characters. Can't find them except for two, which are large sets. So that feeds into the prior discussion we were having about the flagships of the giant sets. Doing this, it's the Warriors' combat layer, which has two main characters and four other characters. It must be kept in mind it's portrayed on hero versus villain, but they're still secondary, so it's still gray in terms of how it's represented. And then the Croc Swamp Hideout, which, by the way, is an incredibly ugly set, which has two main characters and three throwaway characters, again represented in evil versus good.
Meso, you just called this set ugly? I think I hear Steven Villman crying.
No, it looks bad. It looks like a Minecraft set without the charm of Minecraft. So... in Nexo Nights, there aren't any either, although someone did point out in the live studio audience, I think it was Walk, that Ninjago... Nexo Nights does not just have the little bots and the knights, they also have the King's Guard, which are kind of the minion characters for the good side, which are these helmeted kind of people that do look different in their own way. But I think he said this afterwards, like, who really cares about the King's Guard? It's like...
Yeah, there was a comparison for the King's Guard in the poll that Vard started. Give me a sec, I'm linking the images. These are King's Guardsmen, and yeah, the difference?
That's funny.
Their helmet.
They do have a unique helmet design.
Now that I've had my moment to kind of come up with something, just want to ask you guys, which of these looks more important?
I mean...
They both kind of look like Tahu to me.
The one on the right looks gross.
Yeah.
The one on the left looks good. The one on the right looks like he's like bulging out of his armor. Because
the thing is,
removed like the blue.
Like the
looks like
argument
a down-
here isn't that you wouldn't be able to discern this in a lineup. That's not the issue here.
And the reason I pointed out the Chima sets is because prior we were like, we need to like follow the logic of action themes in the past. From what I can see, there's no one-to-one
There's no one
reference we can draw. There's no
Bionicle's
person. It is a
Bionicle
unique
is a little
situation.
different. And to be fair, that's the reason we want to try to do it so we don't want to do
Exactly.
Ninjago again. We wanted to do something where you can do more world building, etc.
The
So fair enough.
problem here is that printing is not like it's too.
I can definitely tell the one on the right is less powerful than the one on the left, but they look like the same character to me.
Yeah.
Right. See, that's what that's the conclusion I was coming up with. It's like, yeah, you can through printing you can kind of tell what character is a bit more important, but at the same time, it doesn't come off like that immediately. That's just something you got to really look towards. Now, but if you did have that height difference, I feel like that would help a lot, because otherwise they do look like the same character. They have the same aesthetic.
And see, here's the thing. Like, here's the compromise, the ultimate compromise that I can only think of to make this work. If you're going to make all the Matoran characters the same height as the Toa, to me, the only way to make the Toa stand out enough is to make the Matoran characters basically have the same default printing, except with very minor variations. And I don't necessarily want to do that.
Wait, you don't? I thought that was going to be. That's exactly what. Like, that's the assumption. We would have the minifigure characters essentially all have the same, the
What's the
lesser
point
printing.
of minifigure packs then if they're all going to be the same?
Well, they would have different cloth accessories. wait, okay. What are you talking about, though?
Meso,
Like, so
you just
what are you
blew
saying
out
when it
your
comes to,
audio. I'm sure of it.
I know.
No, I'm like,
See
the way
that?
was
It's
said-
immediately different.
Yeah.
The way that was said.
All right, so wait,
is
so okay, are you wanting different? I mean, I'm talking about like different tribes though. Like there won't be like. I mean, certain minifigures will have something additional added onto them.
All
in a
right, so
sense, but like,
there are 6 different variations of Matoran then. Is that what we're getting at?
Yeah.
yeah.
Just different color schemes, but essentially the same default pattern? Because, yeah, that's the only way I can see it working.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Wait,
All-
so what were you talking
all
about?
so that you can have a couple of side characters no one's going to care about have legs.
And apparently all those side characters are going to have the same
You keep
skin,
saying
too.
all the side characters no one's going to care about. They're going to play an important role in the story.
Okay.
They're not going to be.
What?
They're not.
They're
These
gonna be more
important
important than our
characters
main
in our
characters?
story.
No, I'm not saying they're going to be more important. I'm saying that you're trying to devalue them like they're side characters nobody cares about. Well, people will care about them. Now, they won't care about them as much as a Toa, which are our main characters.
Exactly.
But saying that no one's going to care about them.
The Matoran perspective in Bionicle has always been important.
I mean,
I will
it's
agree
been.
there.
I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that statement.
Yeah.
Well, Aldi just made that statement.
No.
That's like saying no one cares about the Chroniclers company.
Controversial statement
because
here.
they
the
weren't
Matoran
in
are
sets.
useless. The Matoran are absolutely the only place that we really saw them be useful or a focus at all was Monog, and Monog was a mistake. It was an accident. It was a fluke.
Let's fix that. Because why would we have characters that are useless?
So that to juxtapose against your
I
primary
mean, that's exactly what I'm
characters.
saying.
Seeing things
What I'm saying is that,
from-
like, in your set, you're like, okay, let's just include these useless characters then. And I'm like, why would you do that?
there's-
Seeing things from the Matoran
Apparently
perspective is
Important
integral.
characters that look exactly the same.
Listen, Matoran are villagers.
Different cloth.
They play a role the same as any citizen of any city is concerned. They have a purpose. However, in
Takua
the
has a
grand-
skirt piece,
I mean,
though. He's
I guess,
super
like,
important.
In the
listen,
grand scheme of
Var, you
things-
keep saying that, like, the Matoran and, like, Bionicle literally were not exactly the same, though. Like, that is, like, I don't know how you're drawing that difference as to how this works, where it's like...
Because I don't understand how many Matoran you're actually planning on putting in these sets. Are we only going to have 6? Or are we going to have more than 6? Sure,
Plus-
it makes sense in G1 where they were all clones of each other because there were only 6 of them and they were side characters. They were like $5 sets that no one cared about.
And it also makes sense they were clones of each other because that was back in the era where Lego still made,
The clone
clones
sets.
of each
Yeah,
other.
but if we're
Not
only
only do
going
they
to have
not
6,
do that, but they're minifigures.
but if we're only going to have 6, then I don't really see why it's so important
Well,
to
I mean,
make
like-
them have posability then.
We're not going to have just 6. It's going to be more than 6.
How many more?
I don't know.
Okay, so
I don't
more
know
than,
because we haven't worked out how many sets we're going to have and everything.
more
I have
than
no,
6,
I
but
don't,
they
I
all
don't
have the
a pitch
same.
for you.
They all have the same skin.
They wouldn't all have the same skin,
Some of them would.
but some of them would. Yeah.
One would have a cloak. One would have a
No,
skirt,
not just
one
like just a cloak. Like there would be variations kind of within the two
Like, what
forms,
kind of
but
variations are we talking about here?
the same type of variations as the Toa have in their own armor.
Because in that case, then they start to get lost and muddied with the Toa. Then you have the same problem with the Chima picture earlier, where they all look the same.
Listen, the Toa, we would have the same way. We have different designs of the one Toa design. We have different designs of a Matoran design. That's what I'm saying. Like the Toa do not have the exact same armor or the exact same printing, right?
Then how
and so
would the Matoran look? Then in that case, would they have less armor?
The printing on the Matoran would look less complex than the ones on the Toa.
Right.
It would be visually distinctive.
I don't think it'll be distinct
see, that's
enough.
what I tried to do. I tried to like kind of emulate the Toa armor style, but at the same time make it a little less detailed. And apparently that didn't work.
Nope.
And I'm afraid of taking away too much armor. Because then it's like, what do we put in place?
Well, I feel like
are we just going to reveal their gray bodies?
No. I feel like you should.
Look
the thing is, that, like, it looks like Tahu because if you change that mask, I wonder if that would
Change the mask and maybe like make the red print on the torso like whiter.
Yeah, or like a different.
So it doesn't show so much of like, because it looks like he has a pot belly. Somebody mentioned. But, like, I feel like that's a good framework to build off of for, like, the Matoran design. Personally speaking.
I don't get the potbelly thing, but sure.
It's just a trick of the eyes. It's not actually a thing, but that's the look that comes across. It looks like he has barely any armor covering, like, his gray skin. He needs, like, whiter armor.
Yeah,
It's because the minifigure itself has a pot belly, so you have to...
Boogleman posted an interesting picture. And he basically, he took Tahu, kept him red, and then he took... then your concept made it kind of like a burnt orange and asked, well, which one is more important? To be perfectly frank,
I still can't tell.
I don't know. Because they're a different color and I don't associate them anymore.
I know that Tahu is more important because I know Tahu, but honestly, they look pretty similar as far as importance.
If you told me that the guy on the right is Pohatu,
so.
then I'd believe you.
I think that I think you can easily tell.
Hold up. I have a question.
Can't.
How can you tell? Is it just because of the blue? Because, like, if that was Pohatu, I know our Pohatu design is much more intricate, but, like, if that was the kind of, like, burnt orange color, it's like, okay, so he's Toa size, check. Got a mask, check. He's got glowy bits, check. He doesn't have the Nuva symbol, but he does have some kind of symbol.
Well, technically he does, actually.
He does have it, yeah, it's just muted, but he does have some kind of glowing symbol on his torso. The printing is less intricate. Sorry, that picture will go up. Sorry, just people posted in the chat. Yeah, you're gonna get like that. That's a controversial discussion for another day. Minog was a mistake, but a mistake that should be emulated. G2's mistake was not emulating the mistake. Anyway, I do agree. Like Tahu does look more important, but I do wonder like how much of that is because we know Tahu and we made Tahu.
Exactly. There's a bias there.
Well, I mean, like, also think about, like, if you think about, like, some of the Clone Wars sets, right? You can tell which clone troopers are the commanders, even though there's other clone troopers in the mix.
Because of the color of their pauldrons.
Yeah, the problem with that
Meso.
is they're all white
Yeah.
and different colors mean different things. These guys will have different colors.
And they're not all like extremely different in power sets either. They're all just soldiers. Some
Like
have
if
higher
we
rank.
had this little like Tahu Matoran, like this short little red guy that Vin made, and we gave him, I don't know, blue shoulder pads, yeah, he'd look more distinct. Yeah. So maybe we should think about shoulder pad printing.
To be fair,
stormtroopers, pauldrons.
We are missing one. We haven't really mentioned one aspect of Boogleman's design here that I can see is that he's saying amongst an army of orange troops, the one red character stands out. He's right there.
Enough.
I can give him that.
My only issue with that is sure, but you know, in an army of blue, the white one stands out. It's a little too flimsy to me.
I mean, to me, the problem starts to arise because, like, once again, it works when they're all the same skin, but when you start adding variations to it, I'm unsure about how well it holds up. And I feel like, once again, I feel like the only way it's going to work is if they're all the same skin, but I don't want to do that. I want them to have individual printing. I want them to have more variation between each other. I want them to stand out amongst each other. I just don't want them to. I don't want them to blend in with the Toa characters.
I think you can achieve that. I think that's a thing that, like, if we sat down and started working on these designs, that we could get a better, accurate assessment of that and how things will look like, and design these characters so that they will make the Toa stand out. I'm not opposed to the Toa standing out. I just don't think that them standing out is a thing related to how, like, the height of the character, and also it's not worth making the Matoran characters lose articulation just for that. I think we can achieve a compromise, because we can still have the battle packs, we still have all the things we're thinking about doing with the Matoran without sacrificing the immediate visual distinction with the Toa. It's the best of both worlds.
You're putting a lot of importance on Matoran, and I'm struggling to figure out why.
Well, I think Matoran are a very important part of Bionicle. And the villagers are a very important part of Bionicle.
I think they're important to the story, but I don't think they're going to be important to the sets.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they won't be important to the sets. I'm saying that we shouldn't devalue them in the set. If they're not going to be that important, there's no need to necessarily go overboard.
They should be devalued because they're not on the same value as the Toa, though.
Well, they're devalued in terms of actual printing as the main characters, but we shouldn't actually make them have hobbit legs.
So what was the suggestion you had earlier?
About what? I forgot.
About what I should change?
Just give him, like, whiter armor. Don't have so much of the gray on the stomach, like,
right.
showing. That's what I would do. And
okay.
You can have the gray. That's important for the look, just not, like, in, like, the belly area. Like, for lack of a better word. I honestly don't know which would be less appealing to people. I honestly don't.
I think Hobbit legs
having
would be
unique
less
Matoran with
appealing.
Hobbit legs, or Matoran that look the same that are normal minifigures.
The thing is that I wish we could take a poll based on, like, you're suggesting Eurobricks beforehand. I wonder how many people would be against the Hobbit
Eurobricks
figure on
Bionicle
Eurobrick.
form's dead, so we couldn't get an aggregate.
Yeah, I don't know if that would really work.
Yeah.
We may have to do something like.
I would like. I wonder, like, if we could think about different.
Here.
Like seeing on a much wider scale, because I feel like these. From what the impression I've got from the fandom is that people generally as a whole really, really dislike the Hobbit figures, and I can totally see why, because I dislike anything with less articulation than the Matoran.
Sure.
I inherently, that's the reason we just did not make Onua a big fig and decided an Axel fig. Had there been no Axel fig, I don't think Onua would be the same size as the rest of the Toa. We would not have gone with a big fig for it.
I suppose, but a big fig exists, so we can talk about hypotheticals or we can talk about the now.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. I'm saying that, like, right now, we are... Because, like, if we didn't have an Axel fig, we would be like, no, Onua doesn't need to be that much bigger. And we don't have the same...
His point
Axel
is
fig
that if it wasn't for the
moment.
Axel fig, we would not have sacrificed Onua's articulation to make him a big fig. Because the articulation's important. Again, though...
Well, also the big fig is too large.
The argument is that he's a main character.
No, I agree. I'm saying that, like, the importance of strength that we show Onua having would not be worth sacrificing articulation for that. Right? The only reason we're doing it is because we have a good compromise between it. There is no good compromise right now that will get made.
I mean, I suppose, but I mean, the Hobbit legs and the big figs are on two different planes as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and to that
I think
extent, the Hobbit figures have more articulation in a big fig, so...
Like,
But they both have less articulation than normal minifigures.
Yeah, but if we made Onua a big fig, the change in size is way too dramatic. So, like, obviously he'd look like a freaking monster then. So I wouldn't want to do that. That's the only reason why I wouldn't want to do that. If Onua was a monster, and canon-wise, then sure, but he's not.
Also,
It's more of an exaggerated difference between size and the Hobbit legs would be.
Yeah.
To me, it's not a thing of articulation. It's the size of the figure itself.
real quick, a couple of points here regarding Matoran. First of all, Ulti, Glorious Overlord, had posted a picture of some Chroniclers Company mocks, which I thought were really cool. And he says they have much less articulation than Toa. Are they less important in the story? Yes, way less. Way less. It's not even...
The better question would be,
here's
are
the
they
thing.
completely unimportant?
completely
Right.
unimportant? No. Are they way less important than a Toa? 100%.
Yeah.
Easy, 100%.
Absolutely.
Which
Without
goes
a
to show
shadow
that
of a
Well,
doubt.
think
except,
you can still
however,
have
actually,
characters
I would argue that
look
in
this way.
2001, it was the opposite. In 2001, they were the only characters that mattered because we didn't get any real content with the Toa. The Toa were background characters in 2001. We don't get their story until the books come out in, 2002?
2003.
Yeah, but
Right?
people-
Also, still doesn't matter because, again,
Yeah.
they, in the grand scheme of things, are not more important than a Toa. They're
And
not
the
even
grand
equal.
scheme
Which
of
I
things,
think was
no.
Ulti's point.
The other thing
That
is, and the reason
articulation
why
does equal
I'm really confused.
No, I think those are both those facts are a correlation, but that does not imply causation.
The other thing that I wanted to touch upon is, as I was saying, you put a lot of importance on Matoran. And in the story, we may see a few Matoran. Bionicle, both generations in total, had around 273 sets. Of that, there were roughly 35 Matoran sets.
Yeah, but that's the difference is that you didn't necessarily get sets where you had 3 characters in it. You know what I'm saying? Like each construction, each character is its own set. So of course, if we only were allowed to do 1 minifigure per set, then sure, we would probably have no Matoran figures. As is construction. Construction is just 1 character per set.
I would kind
Generally
of... I would
speaking. So
almost agree if it weren't for a few of those sets containing multiple Matoran. Karzani.
Well, I mean, a few of those do, but what I'm saying is that, the comparison you're trying to make, that, in construction, the ratio of characters is different. Well, yeah, because construction is based around individual
in the
characters.
overall scheme of things, the Matoran hold very little prominence in any regard, any precedence.
But the argument would be that we're hoping to change that so that they
Right.
would hold a bigger regard. But even then, I don't know.
The Matoran are the key of this story. Bionicle is at its most successful when, they're not exactly at the forefront, but you have some alternative means of story. You have a part of the story where you see things from their eyes.
I believe Bionicle is the most
beginning
successful.
Of 06.
Well, not just that. It's also it's to make a world believable. You have to have a lot of believable side characters in order to add to that. The world is
Yes.
populated by people. Bionicle at its most successful. And I believe the epitome of Bionicle, the epitome of the Bionicle concept that we got in G1 was the 2 Monog games. And in those, part of the thing that made the world feel alive is that there were a lot of other characters that weren't, and granted, they weren't as important as even the main Matoran character. But
Yep.
you got that sense that there was a whole world going on of a lot of different varied people.
And they had less articulation than the Toa, and people loved them.
Wait. Which...
That articulation, it doesn't
The Matoran, articulation
the
didn't
Matoran
stop
were
people from liking the
inferior
Matoran
sets,
characters.
and they were great.
I'm not saying that they stopped from liking the
difficulty
Matoran
for me
characters.
is when we talk about Matoran, Kahin cited the 2 Monogs. Those took place over a span of 3 years. There are 2 Matoran designs during that time. One of which, the Matoran did not have more articulation than the Toa, but the
I think the O3 Matoran might have.
may have, yeah.
Truly.
That was my only holdup.
Right, but I mean,
It's
we're
irrelevant,
arguing different
it
things.
just
We're
caught
arguing, articulation and construction versus articulation and minifigures, though. Completely different things.
I don't think it's a big enough deal.
The Matoran to
I'm
me
sad-
are
I'm
not
sad I
enough
won't be
figures
able to
don't matter.
achieve all of my, one pose that I can do with a minifigure. I can't sit them down in a vehicle, but I can stand them up because they're shorter, and it doesn't have
Yeah.
the same result, basically.
I mean-
I can't muster up the energy to care about this because it's not official sets. That's how I opened this
diorama.
It's not like the normal minifigure had a lot of articulation to begin with.
Exactly, which is why taking away from it would be that much worse.
Yes, for
Would
characters
it really?
that don't matter.
Yeah.
My lord. Oh.
Here, the thing is, somebody on our message boards in the poll topic had made the point. They were saying that I don't see why we have to make the Matorans look weak and pitiful to make the Toa look more powerful and heroic. Because it's a matter of juxtaposition. You're showing visually, show, do not tell, that there are characters
Right.
more important than others. Just as a bona fide fact in a physical
Right.
way. In the same way that there are some people that are physically better than others because they're taller or they've worked out a ton and they're beefier. And you can see that right out the gate. Same way here. It's easier to just see it. You don't have to stand them next to each other and see the printing and take a good hard look at it. You just know
Line up.
that one's short, that one's tall. Tall one's probably stronger. That's it.
Listen, you're saying things that I don't disagree with. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it taking away
I don't
articulation from
think
the
it's
minifigure.
worth it adding them and causing all this confusion.
There's no confusion. I think you're putting this
There's
whole
no
thing as if,
confusion
like,
for
people
us
being
as
like,
a Bionicle
what?
fan.
Which
The
one is
challenge
the actual
bias.
main character?
We already think that we
Breaking
already
grounds
have a
here.
predisposed view on Matoran. Doesn't matter to us.
I think
Guess
like,
at the end of it, it just sounds like it's all a matter of preference. Like, do you value articulation more than visual hierarchy, or vice versa? Some people seem to, some people don't. I don't think this is gonna get anywhere.
Unless we have a vote.
TBH.
I just don't think. Like, okay.
I mean,
If we were.
I feel like this is. I mean, granted, if we do vote on the NBA, I think this would kill the. I mean, this is like this is
would kill
possibly
the-
the
this
worst.
would
I
kill it.
I didn't say this would kill the thing. I said this is possibly the worst decision that we've made on this thing in order to take away from this. As someone who actively was collecting minifigures before we switched from Bionicle to system and everything, as someone who was like I really like abhor any
Any
You're
lack
really
of
planning on
articulation.
collecting all those
Articulation.
Matoran minifigures, huh?
Yeah, if you're gonna get
People
those
want-
Matoran minifigures and they're gonna have the tiny legs, guess what? You're still gonna buy them anyway.
no.
yeah.
Actually, that's.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, you will.
no.
You will.
That's
There
that-
is an
I've avoided characters beforehand because they have the mature
Okay.
legs.
As
Got
much
it.
as
Like
it is
Rocket
fun
Raccoon,
to
example.
laugh at Kai,
No.
he is not wrong. There is a subset of people in the LEGO community who are purists, and they are very particular about the minifigure design, very resistant to change, and they will cast away stuff. And as I said at the start of this, if Bionicle G3 was an actual theme, I would be more inclined to side with you on the basis of, if some might call it sacrificing storytelling integrity, and they might be right, but it would be profits before story.
It wouldn't be profits before story. I don't think you
And
need
I
to
would
do that.
support that. Do not alienate the
As-
buyers of your product. Do not alienate consumers to tell your story.
I'm
But I
sorry,
feel
but
like you'd be
if-
doing that by not.
This isn't
establishing
an
some sort
actual
of visual.
theme, though.
He's
So I
gonna do it
can't
again.
be that adamant about
All
it.
right, well, fine. Be that way. Yell at me.
If
I'm not
I
yelling
was
at you.
going to collect
I
a
wasn't done with my
minifigure,
sentence.
I would rather buy the ones that have the more unique designs and clear differences between them versus one that looks exactly like the other one just because they've got posability.
I know you would, but there's other people that don't do that. For example, the amount of people that want to build
Then
armies
who do we
with their clone
represent?
sets. I'm not saying
I
we
mean,
represent,
I'm
saying
happy
that
for
we
those
shouldn't
other
take it
people,
away.
but there are people
Right.
that would just as well buy the Hobbit figures with actual unique skins between them too.
I feel like that's less. I feel like you're.
Nah,
The printing is less.
it's not less.
I'm
No,
saying
the
the amount of
quantity
people that would
is
buy the Hobbit figures is less than the amount of people who would buy characters in order to build their
I
village
guess
or build
it's a
their
good
army. or
thing
build
that the
something.
Hobbit figures aren't our main characters. They're not.
I'm
who
not saying
people
they're main
were.
characters.
When
I'm
all is
saying
said
you
and
don't
done.
need to devalue them for no reason.
Yes, we should.
Or not no reason,
Oh,
but for a
man.
reason that
We
isn't.
should, we should
that
absolutely
isn't
be devaluing
important enough.
Matoran as opposed to Toa.
You know the main protagonist.
I'm not. What do you mean as opposed to Toa? No one's arguing we're gonna make the Toa shorter.
Sorry, in directly compared to Toa. Compared to Toa is what I meant to say. Poor wording on my part. But compared to Toa,
You know-
Matoran suck.
You know how the protagonist in Ninjago started off with Hobbit legs?
Yeah, because he was a kid, yeah.
People like him.
Yeah, but he also got aged
He
up.
built a franchise.
I mean, like that's like people still like his character, sure, but how many people enjoyed his minifigure though?
How can I say? It's completely
Exactly.
arbitrary.
Well, I mean that's what I'm getting at though. So your
I don't
example
see
doesn't
any
make,
evidence.
your
either.
example doesn't make
My
any.
point is that LEGO does this all the time. And they don't kill their franchises by including Hobbit leg minifigures. People might not buy them, but they're wildly successful. And from all the sounds of things, the majority of our Bionicle theme will not be made up of Matoran characters, even if they have articulation.
Yeah, pretty
So
much.
when all is said and done, I feel that it will all work itself out in the end anyway. And I must repeat my prior statement again. I feel this is important. It's not real. We have to have the degree of separation. If fans try to make our stuff, they're going to use Hobbit legs anyway. Unless we want to put a custom articulated Hobbit leg piece on Shapeways if it does not already exist. I know
I'm
somebody
pretty
saw
sure.
that a while back.
Didn't we? Yeah, don't we see that?
I know
already
we
exist?
saw pictures of it moving. There might be structural integrity problems. There might be reasons why LEGO didn't do them. I don't know. I'm not an expert with ABS plastic. I'm not actually in LEGO's production facilities. It's difficult for me to say.
What, you aren't?
So for the purpose of this hypothetical discussion, I don't think it really matters in the grand scheme.
My dad works at LEGO. my thing is, at the very end, that post I was referencing earlier, the guy finished it saying, making the Matorans shorter than the Toa as a way to show off how weaker they are compared to them would just give the impression to other people that they're helpless and can't defend themselves, and that is the point.
That's the point.
That's exactly the point. That's why Toa
exists. Exactly why
exists.
seeing them band together to beat like smaller threats is so gratifying. They're not able to tackle the story. That's why the Toa exists. There are points in the story where the Matoran come together, and you're like, wow, the underdogs are stepping up. That's why the Chroniclers company is so beloved.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it makes those moments more impactful to have them be of weaker stature.
Weaker's one thing. I just think that
Definitely.
the reason is not like we're not doing a construction set where we're saying okay we can have like the protectors and we can have the Toa, which are it's a different argument. This is there you sacrifice something inherently. Because in 2015, I felt they did that pretty well. The protectors had the same amount of articulation. They were pretty, they were still obviously not the main characters, but you could easily tell that. It was overall a much easier thing to do. The main issue I'm having here is not so much, and that's why like with the last one, it got derailed because we were under the impression we could have the same amount of articulation with the Matoran figures, and that was a decent compromise. This is, now we're just positioning those two things, which is more important.
I don't know what to tell you. The only
I
thing
don't know
I
what to
can
tell you
say in
either.
this discussion is I feel like LEGO would side with you. I feel like if they were bringing back Bionicle, they'd do what they did for Chima and just make like all sorts of characters, and they don't have any visual hierarchy, and they all look the same, but they have great articulation. Evidently, we want to go a bit of a different route, and because ours isn't actually a physical product, the arguments I don't think really hold up that much. They would if this was an actual product. So I don't think you're wrong. I just don't think that for this discussion there's a point to discussing it any further. I think the route forward is clear.
Okay, so moving on.
I mean, there's nothing to move on to. It's the end of the podcast if we stop now.
What have you been drawing, then?
I feel like this has been
Oh yeah, there's nothing
decided.
Absolutely,
I
nothing.
don't think there's anywhere.
No,
there
is nothing. Yeah.
What have you been drawing, then?
I made concept art last night of our. It's supposed to be a visual representation of our idea behind having all the villages kind of frozen in the story. And I was imagining, okay, obviously this is the frozen village. There's no active life except maybe some small critters. But I also imagine like maybe at times the Rahi would go around kind of patrolling, making sure the Matoran are still frozen in these villages. And then I threw Onu in there because I thought it looked cool. So basically, yeah, just a visual representation of that idea.
Is that frozen Matoran a hobby figure or not? I can't. No, I'm kidding.
No, he's moving his legs, so very obviously he's not.
But this looks great, Finn. It looks honestly phenomenal. It has a very eerie atmosphere, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah, I mostly wanted to capture the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love the fireflies. Honestly, they are kind of moving around.
It looks spook in a good way.
Nice, sir.
But
It's also gonna make a snazzy thumbnail at some point. I'll tell you that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I think this
If
looks
it's big
great.
enough, I don't know if it is.
It's big enough.
Good stuff.
should be. If not, I can make it bigger because I have powers like the Toa.
Ulti posts this. Okay, so Vin makes a really good point for height here. The Matoran are frozen. Why would they be important to the story? If Kai's logic is important equals articulation, why would they be articulated?
My logic is not important to equals articulation.
Yeah,
I love how
That's what I'm
Eljay, you were one of the folks that were going, move on, and then you just started it again.
Kai's talking about
Frozen people have no articulation.
Frozen people.
Well, I thought we were gonna ditch that. To be
They
fair,
were frozen. Yeah, like I'm not committed to the frozen idea.
it was a
I'm
picture
not
that came up
gonna
with
just
the
let
very,
it go,
at
okay?
the very, very beginning.
I'm not
where,
uncommitted
like, before
to
we
it,
got into yeah.
but
If that's
I'm not
true,
like
well,
I'm
I
okay
mean-
with like if we choose to go a different direction with it because I'm not like committed to the idea.
Yeah, that may be true. I just wanted to make this.
It looks
I've been
awesome,
wanting to
so
make
you
this
did
for
good.
a while, to be honest. I've had the idea, but I just never had the time to do it.
You
Now
did
I
real
finally
good,
did.
man.
So.
Nice job.
They were frozen so long, their legs stuck together.
And they got shorter.
Anyway,
Well, were you working on anything else? You want to share?
No.
Aside from that, got nothing else. I did put up a naked Matoran pic,
that's
so to speak. Just one without like by that I mean like
a little bit.
without any armor, just so like anybody can just kind of make
That's
up their
higher
own.
than PG-13, dude.
You mean the naked Toa minifigure?
Yeah.
Sure, naked Toa, naked Matoran. They're the
Same
same thing,
thing.
aren't
Yeah, technically.
Well, I mean, they are the
They
same
are
thing,
the
though.
same thing.
That's
In
okay.
a sense.
Not really.
No, they're
Wow.
exactly.
Oh boy.
they? Posting that so anybody can try to come up with something that for like a Toa-sized quote unquote Matoran figure that would actually like
You got a
I
template.
guess make sense. That I got a template. There we go. Thank you. That's the word I was
Did
looking
you ever
for. I
make
got
the
a template.
alterations to a pot belly?
I
Yeah,
did.
he did.
I posted them
Alright.
earlier, but I'll post it
Scroll.
again.
Yeah, I probably got lost in the flood. My apologies.
It's okay. I got it.
Yeah, I think that looks better already.
Make
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. It's whatever.
let's make
I don't care if this looks phenomenal or whatever. I just wanted to kind of
visualize it.
visually represent something that looks less significant than a
Yeah.
Toa.
Let's make Toe an acronym.
So that's why like
Tall, overpowered, awesome.
Looks good.
Wow.
I like it, man.
I like it.
thanks.
So, I guess that's all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you have any more like points?
That's it.
Any more like?
I think this has been fairly simple.
Alright. Well, much like with actual Bionicle. Much like with actual Bionicle and probably what LEGO goes through, there are multiple sides to every discussion. There's shades of gray to everything. As we've learned from this, no one answer
50 of them.
is 100% right or wrong. It depends on the situation. But I am curious, even still, to hear all of your thoughts on the matter. If all of you guys in the audience have any input on Matoran being short, Toa being tall, same size, different size, how to differentiate through printing, status symbols, please share. Because nothing is 100% locked down. We could always have some great turn in the future and realize the error of our ways. And I'm very curious to hear that. So any input whatsoever, share it with us in the comments or on the TTV message boards at board.ttvchannel.com, and we will read it and take it under consideration. In the meantime, next week we will return to our G3 discussion with some more exciting topics. I don't know what we'll talk about. The sky's the limit. The future is bright and all that fun stuff. So, as every week, we'd like to end by giving a shout out to one of our live studio audience members or just one of our patron members in general. This week, I'm going to spotlight Matthias Martinelli, I think is how you pronounce your name. A $3 Patreon for our Patreon. The Patreon website, the TTV Patreon. You're a great guy, Matthias Martinelli. Thank you very much for being such a great fan. We really appreciate you. And I guess that's all. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you all next week.
Nice.
I'm Meso.
I'm Var.
I'm Eljay.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Ben.
And farewell, everybody. I kept expecting somebody to be after you, Ben. This is TTV 243. Adios, everybody. See y'all next week.
Good thing you didn't
See
wake
ya.
purple for this one.
Alright, oh, she'd probably want to kill
would've
you all
gone
by
insane.
You should
now.
have quit.
She got more triggered by that combo than I did the other night.
I was triggered by her triggering.
She was triggered.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Adios.
Later, guys.